You check your phone. Nothing. No message. No invitation. No real sign that anyone is thinking about you. Then you open social media and the screen gives you the same performance it gives everyone else. Groups of people laughing too hard, clinking glasses, leaning into each other, broadcasting connection like a product. And somewhere in your chest, something heavy drops. A cold kind of silence. Not the peaceful silence of a quiet room, but the social silence. The silence that makes you wonder whether something is wrong with you. The silence society has taught you to fear. Because from the time you were young, you were given a script. Humans are social. Friendship is proof of worth. Belonging is health. Popularity is normal. If you are often alone, then the diagnosis must be simple. You are broken, difficult, antisocial, damaged, defective. That is what they tell you. But what if they are wrong? What if your solitude is not a malfunction, but a filter? What if the reason you have few friends is not because you lack the ability to connect, but because you lack the ability to tolerate what most people call connection? What if your mind rejects the artificial so fast that shallow bonds never survive contact with your standards? There is a pattern in nature that people rarely talk about. The more specialized a creature becomes, the smaller its circle tends to get. Herd animals survive in crowds. Simpler organisms cluster for safety, but the more precise, self-sufficient, and dangerous an organism becomes, the less it needs numbers. The sheep gathers, the deer moves in groups, but the tiger does not form committees. It moves alone. If you are listening to this, you have probably felt different for most of your life. Not better, not worse, different. Like everyone else got a handbook on how to laugh at the right moment, care about the right things, say the right social phrases, and wear the right face. And you never got the manual. Or maybe you got it and refused to use it. You tried fitting in, you tried pretending, you tried acting excited about what excited them. You tried lowering your intensity, sanding off your edges, simplifying your thoughts into something more digestible. But the mask never stayed on for long. It always slipped. Because the deeper truth is this: you are not built for easy belonging. And today, I want to dissect why, not with comforting cliches, but with precision. Because there are certain traits that appear again and again in people who walk alone. These are not just random personality quirks. They are patterns, adaptations, psychological mechanisms. And once you understand them, your solitude stops looking like a wound and starts looking like a signal. The first trait is this: you see patterns other people refuse to see. Most people interact at the level of language. They hear what was said and stop there. I care about you. I support you. We're friends. I'm happy for you. They take the sentence and call it reality. You don't. Your brain doesn't stop at words. It scans tone, timing, tension, facial shifts, hesitation, contradiction, emotional residue. You notice when someone smiles with their mouth but not with their eyes. You notice when praise lands with a trace of resentment. You notice when agreement comes too quickly and sounds rehearsed. You notice when someone says they're fine, but their body leaks hostility. You are not listening only to meaning. You are listening to mismatch. And once you become sensitive to mismatch, social life changes. Because now a conversation is no longer just a conversation. It becomes a stream of microdata. A room is no longer just a room. It becomes a theater full of small performances, hidden motives, status negotiations, suppressed resentments, quiet envies, fake enthusiasm, strategic politeness. The average person can relax inside that environment because they either do not see it or choose not to. You do see it, and because you see it, participation becomes exhausting. People will tell you that you are too intense, too serious, too observant, hard to read, judgmental. What they really mean is this: you make it difficult for me to keep pretending. You are a mirror, and many people hate mirrors when they are not proud of what they reflect. That is why some people disappear from your life after you simply stop playing along. It is not always because you hurt them. Sometimes it is because your clarity exposed them. Your silence said what your mouth didn't need to. So understand this clearly. Your solitude may not be the result of social failure. It may be the price of accurate perception. The second trait, you have a low tolerance for shallow energy. There is a kind of conversation that keeps most of society running. Tiny gossip, recycled complaints, trends, celebrity drama, surface-level opinions, safe observations, emotional fast food. For many people, this is enough. It fills time. It reduces loneliness. It creates the feeling of connection without demanding any real depth. But for certain minds, shallow interaction feels physically draining. Not boring, draining. Because your attention is expensive to you. Your inner world is active. Your thoughts naturally move toward ideas, systems, philosophy, ambition, psychology, future outcomes, hidden motives, meaning. You do not want to spend 2 hours discussing nothing and calling it a relationship. To you, small talk often feels like a tax. And when you try to introduce something deeper, you can feel the room recoil. Mention mortality, destiny, power, self-deception, the future of civilization, the cost of ambition, the architecture of the mind. And suddenly people look uncomfortable. Someone laughs, someone changes the subject, someone brings the conversation back to something safe and disposable. That happens because most people do not want depth. They want stimulation without confrontation. Depth confronts. Depth forces people to think. It threatens the comfort of automatic living. It exposes the emptiness of surface routines. It asks more of a person than most want to give. So you learn something early. If you want real conversation, it will be rare. If you want real connection, it will be rarer. And because you would rather be alone than mentally starved in a crowd, your circle shrinks. That is energy management. The third trait, you resist herd control. Many friend groups are not built on freedom. They are built on soft coercion. Unwritten rules, approved opinions, expected reactions, accepted enemies, approved hobbies, approved humor, approved values. The group decides what is normal, and every member pays a tax to stay inside the circle. Most people tolerate this because belonging feels safer than autonomy. You don't. The moment a group starts demanding unconscious compliance, something in you tightens. You begin to feel trapped rather than included. It is not that you hate people. It is that you hate psychological captivity. If the group dislikes someone, you are supposed to dislike them too. If the group praises something shallow, you are supposed to clap too. If the group believes a fashionable lie, you are supposed to repeat it too. But your mind keeps asking the forbidden question, why? And why is dangerous in social systems built on emotional obedience. Because many groups are not seeking truth, they are seeking synchronization. You interrupt synchronization. That makes you inconvenient. Narcissistic personalities especially hate people like you, because narcissists do not want friends. They want witnesses, amplifiers, obedient satellites. They want people who nod at the right time and never look too closely. But you look closely. So they either try to dominate you or exile you. And what confuses them is that exile often doesn't break you. It clarifies you. Because once you leave the herd, the noise decreases. You begin to think more clearly. You begin to see how much of social life is obligation, fear, mimicry, debt, and performance. You realize that popularity often costs too much. And slowly you trade belonging for sovereignty. Yes, it is lonelier, but it is cleaner. The fourth trait, you are built to obsess over construction, not distraction. Many people use friendship as a way to pass time. You do not want to pass time. You want to use it. This is a massive difference. You feel the days, you feel the years, you feel the pressure of unrealized potential like a blade against the ribs. Whether it's a business, a craft, your body, your intellect, your philosophy, your art, your future. You are haunted by what you could become if you stopped leaking attention. And building requires sacrifice. You cannot give everything to focus and still maintain every social thread. You cannot obsess over your mission and also remain endlessly available for low-value interaction. At some point, the invitations start clashing with the work. At some point, the late nights out start costing mornings. At some point, hanging out begins to feel like theft from the person you are trying to become. So you start saying no. No to the random outing. No to the endless chat. No to the social ritual that adds nothing. No to staying on the phone with people who are going nowhere. And after enough no's, something predictable happens. The invitations fade. People assume you changed. They assume you think you're above them. They assume you are cold. But what is really happening is simpler. You are in a construction phase. A skyscraper cannot be built if everyone keeps walking through the foundation. Sometimes solitude is not a tragedy. It is a work zone. The caterpillar disappears into a cocoon, and from the outside it looks like death, stagnation, isolation. But inside, an entire architecture is dissolving and reforming. You may be in that phase right now. And if you are, being alone is not evidence that you are failing. It may be evidence that something in you is reorganizing for a higher form. The fifth trait: your presence exposes insecurity in others. Have you ever entered a room quietly and felt someone dislike you almost immediately? No conflict, no insult, no history, just a strange coldness, hostility, or tension. This often happens because some people function like emotional projectors. When they meet someone highly self-contained, observant, and not visibly hungry for approval, they do not experience that person directly. They experience what that person reflects back to them. Your silence makes them hear their own noise. Your independence makes them feel their dependency. Your standards make them feel their compromises. Your restraint makes them feel their chaos. You become an accidental mirror, and mirrors create discomfort in people who are not ready for self-honesty. So, what do? They attack the mirror. They call you arrogant, cold, weird, intense, unfriendly, judgmental. But often those labels are just camouflage for shame. Because beneath the accusation is a quieter truth. You remind me of what I avoid in myself. That is why manipulators dislike self-sufficient people. That is why fake people dislike grounded people. That is why people addicted to mutual delusion cannot tolerate someone who quietly refuses the script. You break the emotional bargain. The bargain says, I will validate your excuses if you validate mine. I will tell you the lie you want if you tell me mine. We will call this friendship. You refuse, and because you refuse, you become the villain in stories told by people who needed you to participate in their fantasy. Let them tell those stories. A villain in a dishonest person's story is often just a person who would not bend. The sixth trait: your mind lives ahead of the present moment. Most people live very close to now. Their focus is immediate, tonight, this weekend, this mood, this craving, this conflict, this drama, this distraction. Your mind often lives further out. You see what habits become. You see what patterns turn into. You see how a decision today mutates into a life 5 years later. You watch someone normalize chaos and can already see the divorce, the burnout, the collapse, the regret. You hear people mock an opportunity and can already see the future where they wish they had acted. That creates a strange loneliness, because you are often speaking from tomorrow to people who only care about tonight. You care about trajectory. They care about temporary relief. You care about destiny. They care about vibe. So even when you are physically with people, you often feel temporally alone. Like your internal clock is set decades ahead of the room. Like you're standing watch on a wall while everyone else is asleep in the city below. And here is the painful part. The watchman is rarely loved before the danger arrives. People call him paranoid, too serious, too negative, too obsessed with consequences, until consequences arrive. Then suddenly they want his foresight, his stability, his clarity. But by then, he usually understands a hard truth. You cannot save people who are committed to sleep. So you keep walking toward the future, even if it means walking alone. The seventh trait: you are internally driven. This may be the rarest trait of all. Most people are powered from the outside in. They need attention, praise, validation, witnesses, applause, reassurance, romantic stimulation, social feedback. Remove the audience, and their energy collapses. But some people are powered from the inside. They read because they must know. They train because strength matters to them. They build because the vision will not leave them alone. They create because the unmade thing is burning inside their head. This is what psychology sometimes calls an autotelic orientation. The ability to find meaning inside the act itself rather than in the reward around it. That kind of person is difficult to manipulate because social leverage loses force against someone who can function without the crowd. The world controls most people through fear of exclusion. If you disagree, we won't like you. If you change, you'll lose us. If you stop performing, you'll be alone. That works beautifully on people who are starving for reflection. But on someone who can go home, shut the door, open a book, train, think, work, build, and still feel alive, the weapon fails. And people feel that. They sense they have no strings to pull. That doesn't just confuse them, sometimes it frightens them. Because a person who does not need the room is a person the room cannot easily control. Now step back and look at the whole pattern. You detect the false, you reject the shallow, you resist conformity, you prioritize building, you expose insecurity, you think in long-time horizons, you generate meaning from within. That combination does not create a loser. It creates an outlier. It creates someone who is structurally incompatible with a lot of modern social life. And that is why your solitude hurts, but also why it has meaning. Now I need to be honest with you. There is danger in this path. If you stay isolated too long without understanding yourself, the mind can turn against itself. You start internalizing other people's distance. You start asking whether maybe they were right. Maybe you are too much. Maybe you are arrogant. Maybe you are unlovable. Maybe you should lower your standards just enough to be let back into the herd. That is the trap. Because once you start betraying your own nature to buy contact, you do not get true connection. You get interference. You get role play. You get crowded loneliness. You get the heavy exhaustion of smiling in rooms where your real self never arrived. And that loneliness is worse than solitude. The loneliness of the mask is heavier than the loneliness of the cave. So what do? You stop treating solitude like a prison and start treating it like a laboratory. You use it. You stop apologizing for your standards. If you need depth, loyalty, intelligence, honesty, and real substance, then stop eating emotional junk food just because you're hungry. Hunger is not a reason to poison yourself. Hold the standard. Then become a signal. Do not chase your people by begging random rooms to understand you. Build yourself into something visible to the rare few who are wired like you. Get sharper, stronger, more articulate, more disciplined, better at your craft, more honest in your speech, more exact in your life. Lighthouses do not chase ships. They stand, shine, and wait. The right ones find them. And while you wait, learn one more skill. Wear the mask lightly. You do not need to walk around announcing your depth to shallow people. Learn how to survive in ordinary environments without giving your inner world to everyone. Be polite. Be functional. Use small talk when needed. Let most people have the weather version of you. Not everyone deserves the full architecture. That is not dishonesty. That is discernment. Because the truth is, meaning is expensive. A life that is truly yours will cost you comfort, easy belonging, casual acceptance, and often the warmth of the herd. But what you gain in return is harder to find and impossible to fake. You gain self-possession. You become someone who can sit alone without collapsing. Someone who can think without drowning. Someone who can build without applause. Someone who can wait without panicking. Someone who would rather endure the cold truth than live inside a warm lie. And that kind of person is rare. So look at the empty chair in front of you differently. It is not empty because no one wants you. It may be empty because it is reserved. Reserved for the rare mind. Reserved for the honest one. Reserved for the person who can meet you without needing you to shrink. Until then, honor the silence. Use it to think. Use it to sharpen. Use it to build the version of yourself that your future tribe will actually recognize. Because you are not lonely in the way society means it. You are early. You are the first one at the meeting point. And the hard part is not being alone. The hard part is enduring the wait without betraying what made you rare in the first place.